Formula One is one of the most profitable sports franchises in the world. In 2024, the league generated a record $3.4 billion of revenue and an operating profit of $800 million. This is a massive increase from 2016, when they generated just $1.8 billion of revenue and an operating profit of $450 million. With such strong revenue growth, you'd be forgiven for assuming that the sport has concurrently seen an increase in popularity. The reality is quite the opposite. You might be surprised to hear that today, Formula One is less popular than it's been almost at any time in its history. In 2008, 600 million people globally watched Formula One races. Since then, the company has stopped disclosing its number of unique viewers. We nonetheless have ways to estimate it. We estimate that in 2024, just 360 million people watched Formula One, a decline of 40% from the peak. While viewership numbers have stabilized in recent years, there's no sign of a rebound. In 2016, Formula One was acquired by the American media conglomerate Liberty Media. Liberty Media implemented numerous reforms which have not increased the sport's popularity, but have greatly increased its monetization. In this video, we'll look at the history of Formula One, what reforms Liberty implemented, and how it became so profitable. The Formula One World Championship was established in 1950 by the Fédération Internationale d'Automobile, or FIA. But in the early decades, F1 functioned more like a gentleman's club than a professional league. Individual race promoters, usually local motorsports clubs, organized each Grand Prix independently. The Grand Prix is just what they call the race. They were hosted all across Europe. They rented tracks, sold tickets, and paid appearance fees to attract top drivers and teams. There was no central authority managing commercial rights or coordinating the calendar beyond basic technical regulations and scheduling. The teams were owned either by wealthy hobbyists or car manufacturers who wanted to showcase their engineering prowess. In the 1970s, a British businessman and former race car driver named Bernie Ecclestone purchased a now-defunct F1 team called Brabham. Ecclestone realized there was a big money-making opportunity with F1 that was not being realized. Ecclestone formed a coalition of F1 team owners to negotiate with the FIA. In the early 1980s, they reached a deal. There would be a new Formula One group headed by Ecclestone. This is separate from the FIA. The FIA continues to set the rules for the races, but would not be involved in its business operations. The Formula One group would be in charge of all revenue-generating opportunities. The Formula One group has three main revenue sources. The racetracks for the Grand Prix are set up and operated by third-party promoters. These third-party promoters incur all the costs associated with holding the Grand Prix, and generate revenue by selling tickets to the live audience. The third-party promoter has to pay a fee to the Formula One group for the right to host the Grand Prix. Brands like UBS will sponsor Formula One. If you sponsor F1, you get your logo shown on the racetrack. The sponsorship fees go to the Formula One group. Finally, there's the broadcast rights. Media companies around the world have to pay a fee to the Formula One group to broadcast the Grand Prix on television. Approximately 70% of the F1 group's profits are paid to the teams in the form of prize money. We'll discuss the allocation of the prize money in detail later. The teams are independent entities. They incur all the costs of building their cars and paying their drivers. In addition to receiving prize money, the teams have their own brand sponsors who put their logos on the race cars. Here you can see that Ferrari was sponsored by Shell, UPS, and Ray-Bans. The team sponsorships are independent of the F1 group sponsorships. The system is set up such that it's almost impossible for the F1 group to lose money. They do not incur the cost of the racetrack nor the race cars. They basically just collect fees. Their only real cost is the prize money given to the teams, but this is a percentage so it can never push the F1 group into a loss. Now that we understand how Formula One was founded, we also need to understand the basics of how the sport works. There are 10 teams, each of which with 2 cars and 2 drivers, for a total of 20 cars on the track. In each Grand Prix, the top 10 finishers receive points for both the Drivers' Championship for the individual and the Constructors' Championship for the team. First place earns the most points, 25, and 10th place earns the fewest, 1. Drivers who finish outside the top 10 receive no points. A team can have both cars finish in the top 10, one car, or neither. There are 24 Grand Prix races in the season, and the points from all races are added up to determine the season's champions. The driver who wins the Drivers' Championship receives a trophy and their public stature increases. But this is largely symbolic. What really matters is the Constructors' Championship, because that's how the prize money is allocated. Currently, there are 10 Formula One teams. 5 of them, Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, Aston Martin, and Alpine, are owned by sports car manufacturers. For them, operating a Formula One team is done mostly for marketing purposes. Being able to make a world-class race car signals your technological and engineering expertise. This makes consumers more likely to buy your regular sports cars. Red Bull actually has two Formula One teams. Their main team is Red Bull Racing. They have a second team called Racing Bulls. Racing Bulls is their junior team. They hire novice drivers and let them gain experience in Racing Bulls. Once they're good enough, they can graduate to the main Red Bull Racing team. Red Bull markets its energy drinks to thrill seekers and adventurers. There's no better way to establish this brand personality than building an open-top race car that travels at more than 200 miles per hour. Another F1 team is owned by Haas Automation. Haas makes precision tools. Making a Formula One race car requires a high degree of precision and manufacturing excellence. Haas gains the trust of its machine tool customers by showing it also has the capability to make a race car. Then there's Sauber. Sauber's core business is making parts, which they sell to other F1 teams. Since they already make F1 parts, they figure they might as well make their own team as well. The only truly independent F1 team is Williams Racing. They don't have any other core business. They're just an F1 team. All the teams try to make as much money as they can. That's why you see their cars loaded to the brim with sponsor logos. But their primary goal is not necessarily to make a profit. For example, even if Ferrari's F1 team was operating at a loss, they would never shut it down. It's too important for their overall brand identity. Remember that the Formula One group gives approximately 70% of its profits to the teams in the form of prize money. In 2024, the total prize fund was $1.3 billion, but this money is not distributed equally. This chart shows the 10 F1 teams based on their ranking in the Constructors' Championship. McLaren won first place and Sauber was last place. The prize money is correlated with the team's placing, but the correlation is not perfect. McLaren was in first place and they received $154 million. Despite finishing first, they did not win the most prize money. Ferrari received $258 million, Mercedes $214 million, and Red Bull $188 million. So why is this the case? There's a legacy bonus prize. If you finish within the top 3 in the past 10 years, you get a bonus regardless of your placing this year. Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull have finished in the top 3 many times over the past 10 years, and so get massive legacy bonuses. Ferrari also gets a special bonus payment every year just for being Ferrari. This is for historical reasons. Ferrari is the longest standing Formula One team, having been founded all the way back in 1947. This legacy-based system leads to extremely unequal monetary outcomes. In 2024, Ferrari received $258 million. This is more than 4 times greater than the $59 million received by Sauber. The unequal distribution of prize money has significant implications for the competitiveness of the sport. This chart shows the top 3 finishers in the Constructors' Championship since 2010. The top 3 spots are almost always dominated by 4 teams: Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull, and McLaren. I call these the Big Four. Over the past 15 seasons, only twice has a lesser team cracked the top 3. Williams Racing won 3rd place in 2014 and 2015. This level of dominance is unusual in professional sports. Let's compare this to basketball. Over the past 15 seasons, 10 different NBA teams have won the NBA championship. The most dominant team is the Golden State Warriors, which has only won 4 out of the past 15 championships. If you own an NBA team, the only way to increase your chances of winning is by hiring the best players. But other than the skill of the players, it's a fair game. At the highest levels of the NBA, the difference in skill between various players is not so great, so you can still have upsets where the underdog team wins. Formula One is not a fair game. Each team is responsible for designing and building its own car. The top teams can spend tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars on their car. The top teams have the resources not only to hire the best drivers, but also to build the best car. If you're a rookie driver, the chances of beating one of the top drivers in a fair race is already remote. But if he also has a way better car than you, your chances are almost zero. To understand how lopsided the competition is, let's look at some numbers. According to Forbes, Red Bull currently spends the most money on its drivers. Their 2 drivers, Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez, were collectively paid $95 million in 2024, including bonuses. We don't know how much they spend on their car, but it's probably a lot. In an effort to improve competitiveness, F1 recently implemented a spending cap of $135 million per year. This cap does not include the driver salaries. It only includes the cost of the car and technical staff. The fact that they set the limit at $135 million means that the top teams were probably spending even more than this beforehand. If we assume Red Bull maxed out its spending cap and add the $95 million they paid their drivers, that brings their total 2024 spending to $230 million. In 2024, they received prize money of $188 million. That's a difference of $42 million. Given their high profile, it's possible they made up a large portion of this difference from sponsorships. But even if the Red Bull F1 team makes a loss, that's fine. Red Bull's main business is selling energy drinks. Their F1 team generates tens of millions of fans around the world. These fans have formed a positive association with the brand and are thus more likely to buy Red Bull energy drinks. In 2024, Williams Racing only received $72 million of prize money. And because they lack any other business operations, they cannot afford to incur large losses. Thus, Williams is doomed to an endlessly repeating cycle of failure and poverty. Many commentators have criticized Formula One for being boring. When the same four teams always win year after year, it becomes too predictable. Everyone loves a good underdog story, but in Formula One, this is almost impossible. Throughout the 2010s, Formula One has seen a massive decline in unique global television viewers. In 2018, they changed their methodology for calculating unique viewers, and in 2022, they stopped reporting this metric altogether. But they still disclose their cumulative number of viewers across all 24 Grand Prix. When a company changes how it calculates its KPIs or stops disclosing them altogether, that's usually a bad sign. We calculated the percentage change in cumulative viewership each year and indexed that to the last time they disclosed the unique viewers. While this isn't perfect, it gives us a reasonable approximation for the number of unique viewers based on their original methodology. Since 2020, the number of unique viewers has stabilized, but is still far below the peak levels from the late 2000s. In 2016, Bernie Ecclestone agreed to sell the Formula One group to an American media conglomerate called Liberty Media. Liberty Media believed that Formula One was under-monetized and saw massive room for improvement. Historically, Formula One has been very popular in Europe, South America, and China, but it has not been very popular in the United States. In the field of motorsport, F1 has struggled to compete with the distinctively American NASCAR. While representing a small percentage of the global population, Americans punch well above their weight in terms of consumerism. This makes them particularly valuable for brand sponsorships and advertisers. In an effort to change this, Liberty Media partnered with Netflix to release a reality TV series called Drive to Survive. Instead of focusing on the technical aspects of the cars, the series emphasizes the personalities of the drivers, the human drama, their personal struggles, and the dangers they face on the track. This gave the show a universal appeal and can easily be enjoyed by people who know nothing about the sport. The show was a thumping success. A poll conducted in 2022 found that 28% of American adults considered themselves to be Formula One fans. The majority of them had never even watched a Grand Prix and only knew about the sport thanks to the Netflix show. In 2018, ESPN purchased the exclusive rights to broadcast Formula One races in the US. In the first year, they had fewer than 600,000 viewers. By 2022, this had more than doubled to approximately 1.2 million. This increase can largely be attributed to Drive to Survive. At first, the contract value was very low. In 2022, Formula One renegotiated the deal at a reported price of $90 million per year. Starting in 2026, Formula One is asking for a doubling of the price to $180 million. This is a big ask, and it's unclear if ESPN will accept this. Since the peak in 2022, US viewership has actually been declining slightly. This may indicate that F1's US popularity is a passing fad. In 2022, the Formula One group announced plans to capitalize on the sport's surging popularity in the United States by launching a new Grand Prix in Las Vegas. Unlike every other race on the calendar, which is promoted and operated by third parties who pay F1 a hosting fee, the Las Vegas Grand Prix would be organized directly by Formula One itself, a first in the sport's modern history. The decision marked an ambitious and financially risky shift in strategy. It is estimated that F1 and its parent company Liberty Media spent about $1 billion on land acquisition, construction of a permanent paddock facility, and circuit-related infrastructure. Nevertheless, they were confident that growing US interest in the sport would make the investment worthwhile. The gamble paid off. In its inaugural 2023 race, the Las Vegas Grand Prix drew in over 300,000 live spectators. The most premium of the seats sold for as much as $10,000 apiece. And finally, now that Formula One has a large US audience, they're able to cut lucrative sponsorship deals with American brands. Many brands are willing to pay higher sponsorship fees if you have a large US audience, because Americans consume more than most other nationalities. From a financial perspective, F1 is firing on all cylinders. When Liberty Media acquired F1 in 2016, it generated about $650 million from race promoter fees, $590 million from broadcast rights, and $260 million from sponsorships. By 2024, all three segments have increased massively. Race promotion increased to $1 billion, broadcast rights $1.1 billion, and sponsorships $600 million. Total revenue has almost doubled from $1.8 billion to $3.4 billion. Liberty Media paid $4.4 billion to acquire Formula One in 2016. Liberty Media's capital structure is notoriously complicated. They have multiple different classes of tracking stock for Formula One as well as their other subsidiaries. Based on the current trading price of the non-voting Class C shares, the Formula One group is valued at approximately $24 billion. That's a five-fold gain since the acquisition 9 years ago. Liberty hasn't done anything to improve the sport itself, and on a global scale, Formula One is still stagnant. But they did crack into the US market and reaped massive economic gains as a result. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this video. What do you think about Formula One? Will it continue to be popular in the all-important US market, or is it just a passing fad? Let us know in the comments section below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Wall Street Millennial, signing out.